Okay, so recently there's been a clip that's been circulating the kind of VTubing community and also the community outside of the VTuber community, which has taken Twitter by storm. Now, this is a clip coming from NyaraVT, who does make a lot of videos on, stuff to do with like trans stuff going on in video games or like VTubers, everything like that. And essentially, yeah, they do cover a lot of like drama type stuff, as well as some just kind of social issues and things like that. Now, obviously, I have no problem with them covering any of this kind of content or anything like this, but what this clip actually kind of produced here was a reaction to Tektone's stream, where essentially he's talking about trans people, I'm pretty sure, and well, this was their reaction to it, and I thought this was kind of crazy. So let's just get into it.
This person thinks that minors should be able to consent
to medical treatment. If minors can't consent to HRT, then they can't consent to puberty. How do you not understand the take? Like, what the f is wrong with you? Like, seriously, if they can't consent to HRT, if they can't decide which puberty they want to go through, how do you, like, justify forcing them through puberty? But I guess, knowing the allegations, I guess it checks out that you want to force people to do something that they are not comfortable with.
So yeah, that's essentially the clip. That's a 30-second clip coming from their own channel there, saying slop tubers reacted to me and they didn't care about the context. They're purposely misunderstanding things to push popular talking points within their community and capitalize on outrage. This is why transphobia is so rampant right now. And well, honestly, I think that this clip that they're looking at isn't the reason why transphobia is so rampant. It's actually the person reacting to this. I feel like people are just going to get even more mad at trans people after, you make comments like this, because I feel like it's just a kind of dumb comment to say that, this tweet here saying if minors can't consent to HRT, then they can't consent to puberty. I think that's just so dumb. I mean, obviously puberty is like a natural thing you go through. It's not something that can be forced upon you, like this person is saying. They're saying that puberty is forced upon someone. And I think that's just a stupid take. Now, obviously, if you want to, get to being an adult and want to decide you want to change or whatever, then yeah, that's totally fine. I think, you have every freedom to do so. But I think, whenever you're younger and stuff like that, I think the point that people are getting across is that I think that, maybe you should wait a little bit just to allow, people to grow up, because, some people could end up regretting it and there's not really much you could do, where there is still stuff you could do later on in life, which honestly, I think, still is very beneficial. Now, obviously, yeah, I think this clip kind of blew up because it got 600,000 views over on Twitter, got 2.7 thousand likes. So again, the like ratio isn't very good, and obviously they made a video on it as well saying how slop tubers fuel transphobia, and yeah, that got around 800 dislikes, which is absolutely crazy. And obviously there's been a lot of people commenting on this. For the example, this first one saying it's not transphobic to think that kids should wait till 18, it's common sense. Something Klaus here lacks if they think you need consent to puberty. Kids should mature before making such drastic life choices. They haven't even had sex yet. They don't truly know, which I think is definitely true, I think, I'm not really going to debate on, what kind of age it should be. Should it be 18? Should it be 16? Should it be 20? Whatever. I don't really care about that kind of factor of it, but I definitely do think there should be an adequate amount of time between, just being a child and just growing up a bit and understanding the implications of this happening. And also, I think it is kind of stupid to be, forcing them to make a decision this early on. I think that, it doesn't have to be one of those things that are like normalized where essentially they have to change up like the natural kind of cause of what is going on. And as I said, if they want to change it later on, then that's totally fine. They're free to do so. But, whenever they're a kid, and also we've had like many instances in the past of, for example, parents kind of swaying them in one direction to kind of get them to be whatever they want. There's been cases of like, people that have wanted daughters, and then they've gone ahead and just said, oh, start taking this because then you can actually become a daughter, and tried to make it, tried to make them become one because they didn't get what they wanted, which is also another really big issue that could arise from that kind of stuff. And that's why I think that waiting until, 18, despite, what the parents say, despite what the kid says, is probably the best, course of action. And obviously, people in the comments of this post were not happy either. Nicholas Light saying you need to be able to put on a watch list for this one, saying, sorry, I'm a leftist, but still think that the risk of infertility when it comes to HRT and puberty blockers is too big of a risk giving it to teenagers. Let them go to therapy for sure, but no HRT before 18. And they said, I think it's more important to save lives. Now, yeah, I definitely do agree with what DJ McElfresh says that, and they essentially, yeah, saying that, you know, there is a risk of infertility if you do this as well. Again, I'm not too clued up on the effects of HRT and what it does and how it can affect people younger, things like that. But essentially, they're saying that, you know, it can increase the risk of infertility, which is not great, especially whenever it comes to, you know, the future. And yeah, they're saying, I think it's more important to save lives. And I think, yeah, no, obviously there is a factor of, like, you know, some people are not comfortable being whatever gender they are. And essentially, you know, they do feel very bad, and some of them do end up, you know, losing their life. But I think, you know, there are other ways to kind of get them through, at least until they get to a certain age where they can make a proper decision. For example, like this person says here, like, let them go to therapy, things like that, which I think that can help up until that point. And I think having that notion of the fact that, you know, you can change this whenever you hit 18, I think that will also help as well. But again, this person does not really want to kind of acknowledge that. Obviously, someone says here, let's go over why you're wrong. You aren't forced to go through puberty as a natural occurrence. Disrupting your body's natural growth before it reaches its apex does more harm than good. Allowing minors to make such a huge life-changing decision before they learn more. Again, you know, they're saying if you have dysphoria, you go to therapy. Most people identify with their natural assignment, even those that still don't take any of the processes, or shouldn't anyways, until they're fully matured and an adult. As a suicide rates increase after transitioning. Which again, I don't know if that's true or not, but hey, that's what that person said in the comments. And yeah, I do think, you know, obviously there's many, like, there's multiple reasons why, you know, suicide is a big thing, you know, and I think that, you know, it's trans stuff isn't the only kind of thing, and I think that people forget that as well. And obviously there's many other reasons, you know, for example, maybe there's some people that didn't even like transitioning, or there's some people that found that, you know, transitioning didn't even help them. You know, they thought it might help them, but maybe it was just something else going on in their life that could also do that, which I think, yeah, I don't know. It's one of these, like, situations where it's kind of, like, confusing. I think there's a lot of people with, like, lots of different kind of viewpoints. Obviously, this person is saying here, why are you still using this dumb argument? Puberty is a biological process. Your body naturally does it over time. It's like saying children don't consent to being hungry, breathe, shit, or exist. It's a disingenuous and idiotic take, which is definitely true. I mean, yeah, saying that, you know, they don't consent to puberty is absolutely crazy. I mean, it's a natural kind of process. I mean, you know, you could say that about literally anything, as they say here, being hungry, breathing, or whatever. You know, it's just so dumb. And, you know, finally we got here as well, as a trans person myself, this isn't even a question. Let kids be kids and grow up and make decisions for an adult. That's simple. Which, again, this is coming from an actual trans person. This isn't coming from some random, like, straight dude on Twitter who's just, like, trying to push an agenda across. This is coming from an actual trans person themselves, and they're saying, this is why it's hard to be a trans individual now. These people don't know what they're talking about. They don't need consent. What? Which, again, is absolutely crazy. And then people saying here, saying, I have a trans friend myself, and we're both scratching our heads on what happened in today's age. It feels like someone hijacked what it is to be a person or a group and push their own personal belief. Most just want to live their life to the fullest. They say, same, it's like a shit show, literally. Just be a normal person and love and let live. Sheesh. And then, yeah, people said this years ago that they'd come for kids, but they were called bigots and phobes for it now, and now look what's happening. They're saying sad but true, which, again, I do think that people, you know, just take it one step a little bit too far. I think that, you know, having an age kind of point where people can make the decision is totally fine, and I think that you should be free to do so. But I think that saying that puberty is being forced upon children is so dumb, because it's a natural process, just like literally anything else in this world. And I think that, you know, becoming all, like, I guess, sensitive over this kind of stuff, it's just a bit weird. I mean, let's be real, it's just a bit weird. I mean, you shouldn't really be thinking about it that much. I think that, yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird situation overall. And I think that, you know, obviously Nyara is definitely in the wrong here. And it seems like they are out to kind of cause a little bit of trouble in the community, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on YouTube, or whatever. And yeah, you know, they've made videos on Tectone before, so obviously they're trying to think of every single point against Tectone they possibly can, even if they do sound incoherent and absolutely dumb. I feel like, you know, I don't know, it's just a weird situation overall. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this, because it's a very interesting topic. It's something a little bit different. It's not obviously to do with mainly VTubers or anything like that. It's just due to what this VTuber is saying themselves. But yeah, they've been massively in the kind of space at the moment saying this kind of stuff, and it seems like not very many people agree with them. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and yeah, see ya.